Imagine having amazing, incredible success in your career, being at the pinnacle of what everyone would aspire to be, and then suddenly stopping and taking a look around your life and realizing, does it really mean anything? Is it what really fulfills you? And having the tough job of actually admitting to yourself, no. And that's what we're going to explore today. A lot of people I've encountered through my programs, through coaching work, hit that point but aren't sure where to go. What we're going to do today is talk with someone who faced that moment and then found a way through it to truly live her passion. I'm Ravi Tangri, and this is the meh2YEAH profile, where we are profiling people who've found a way to go from lives of just meh to yeah, and waking up to that every single day. And today, my guest, I'm so delighted to have a dear friend on here, Glynis Devine, who has been an entrepreneur from the age of 20. Now, she has been a phenomenal salesperson in the corporate world. She was number 5 and number 8, in addition to countless times in the top 25 out of a sales force of 30,000. And she led a sales organization of over 200 people to produce consistently outstanding results, to be consistently in the top 25 out of 800 or more in Canada. And Glynis had encountered that moment. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take a moment here to welcome Glynis, and I'm going to get you to maybe, to start off, Glynis, take us to that moment that I was talking about and share that. So welcome, Glynis.
Welcome, and now I'll make you feel really gross, because that's exactly what I felt, Ravi, at that moment. I have to first say that I wasn't in I was man, didn't know it. I wasn't in oh my God, I wasn't looking for anything. I really thought life was okay. Probably no one was more surprised than me when I got blindsided with this emotion. And it happened standing in my bathroom one morning. I was standing putting on the finishing touches of my makeup to go do what I do. And I suddenly looked in the mirror and realized, oh my gosh, I'm miserable. And it wasn't that life wasn't good. Life was really, really good. I had all the trappings of success around me. And I think that's probably what a lot of my clients deal with, and probably yours do too, Ravi. We're told internally that we should be happy. And so we convince ourselves that there's nothing missing. And I think that's what my revelation was that morning, was that I realized there was this piece of me that just didn't feel like it was being fed, is what it boiled down to. And I imploded.
So before that, I want to get to, Glynis, I'd like to dig in a little more. That was that moment of revelation, but I'm guessing that that wasn't really the first clue, that there were things before that you did not fully acknowledge. There were clues. Can you share a bit of that, of what were some of the clues before that you perhaps did not step into, that you really did not own in that?
Fair enough. Good. Hindsight's 20/20. So you don't notice it until you notice it, right? And when I was looking back, I realized, yeah, there were a lot of clues that I just didn't tap into. And the biggest ones were I was sick and tired. A lot. I was constantly out of energy. I had major back problems for a long period of time. And it could very well have been part and parcel of what I was doing. I was pushing myself hard. What I've learned is I push myself hard in a different way now, and it doesn't feel like work. I guess that was the biggest aha, is when I looked back, I was probably going through a lot of emotions, I should say. And I'm sure my people probably tuned into it. You know, I think sometimes we think we're fooling everyone, and the biggest person we're fooling is ourselves. I didn't laugh as much. I didn't sing as much. I didn't dance in my kitchen as often as I do now. Those are all the ahas, the heads up that something is just not lighting you up from the inside, that it's not juicing you, that you are not living in that moment.
Now, did any of your friends say anything to you in that time? Because sometimes our friends notice things before we do.
No, and I have to say that if they had, I might not have listened. I'm not sure that I was. Truth is, when that happened, I was terrified because I had spent 25 years in that career, and I had thought that if this wasn't it, what the heck was? And I was terrified because at that time, my career brought in a significant part of our household income. My husband has always been the meat and potatoes, and I've been the dessert, and I like dessert. And so I suddenly thought, if I stop this career, then what? Especially after having devoted so many years to the same industry, I started questioning if any of those skills, in fact, I didn't even think any of those skills were transferable. That wasn't even on my radar. I was just afraid. And so if anybody had said something like, hey, you're not lit up, you don't seem like you're on fire, I put on a really good face. And I think that in itself was part of the problem because it hit me in my integrity. I knew I wasn't being authentic, and I'm a pretty transparent person, as you know. So putting on a happy face, I can do. I don't like to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in our work, because now you're working in this area, and also looking back and looking around, there's a lot of people that are living in that space of the denial.
Yeah. What I hear the most in my executive coaching is when I say, so have you ever thought about doing that? Whatever their passion is, they say, well, I mean, I can't quit my job. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. And I think had I realized that it doesn't mean quitting your job, leaving your spouse, moving to Siberia, that we can dip our toe into other possibilities before we jump whole hog. Those of us who are whole hog, I think, have the biggest challenge with reinventing ourselves is we think it's got to be all or nothing, and it doesn't. And I think if we take that scary piece out, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is we subscribe from when we're young to what we should aspire to, what success should be,
Yes.
as opposed to finding what is that special gift inside us that needs to be expressed. We squash that down.
Well, and I think we bought into the myth that you should do what you love to do. And I think that's true. I don't believe that we always necessarily need to be paid to do what we love to do. There are a lot of ways to infuse joy in your life. And whether that's as a volunteer, whether that's as a hobby, whether that's a career change, whether that's part-time, something on the side, whether that's just delving into the possibilities, or even playtime journaling about it. Those are all ways to nourish our joy without changing our career and leaving our spouse and selling the house and moving to Siberia. There are so many possibilities that we can explore. Not doing any of them would be the greatest tragedy.
So let's go back then to that point in the mirror and where you were looking, and take me through when that happened and all of this suddenly hit home, where it all you know all the walls came down and you really acknowledge it. Take me through that moment, the progress, because I suspect there was a significant progression of feelings there that happened, significant flow of emotions and thoughts just in that few minutes.
Well, and this is the point, right? When I speak to audiences and I share my story, it sounds like it was a millisecond. And the truth was it's still progressing daily, and it's still transpiring because we are life becomings. We're not like like beings in the moment. And so there was a progression that happened. Not all of it was pretty. A lot of it wasn't. I went through a period of beating myself up that I didn't see it coming. And I have to say, to answer your first question, what happened that brought me to that point, I'd actually had some huge success. And maybe that was what kind of catalysted it. I'd had huge success. I do believe that most people fear of sustainability versus fear of success or fear of failure. Most people figure they can get there. I'm not sure that most people think they can stay there. And so maybe that contributed a little bit to it. I think another piece that contributed to it is, if I can stay there, will that juice me enough to want to stay there? So that's why I say it was a total surprise when it blindsided me, because I should have been happy. I had just had, a banner year. My organization was well over 200 people. I adored my people. We had ease. And one of the quotes that I often use, because now in corporate training I use it a lot, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, that's when change is going to happen. And so I have to say that's probably what it was. It was the concern that this was it. One of the books on my list to write is I'm all grown up now, what do I want? And that's exactly what I felt like. I felt like, okay, I'm all grown up, this is it. Wow, is this what I want? And that's when I started questioning. So one of the first steps I took, when you ask what was the progression through, there was a good 12 to 15 months of closing up shop, leaving a career of 27 years at that point, and exploring possibilities. And those possibilities took a lot of different versions and are still taking different versions. What I first did was I first stopped and did two things. Took inventory. So took inventory of who I was and what was important to me now, because it was very different than when I started my career. And the second thing I did was I started, call it a mantra, call it an affirmation, call it a cry of help to the universe. I just kept saying, I'm open to any possibility. Hands open, I said, I'm open to any possibility. Hit me with it. And I just thought, I'm not going to say no to anything. I am going to consider anything. And that changed my paradigm. It took away the fear. I just thought, I don't have to say yes to everything that comes to me. I do want to be open to all of it.
So again, I just want to backtrack a couple of things there so that we don't miss. You spent those months stepping out of that role. First question I have is, was there a sense of failure that came from leaving that, and how did you deal with that? How did you process that?
Huge. And I have to say that was probably the lot of elements to that question. I felt like I was letting people down. I felt like I was, at least of all me, and I think probably it should have been most of all me, but it was least of all me. I felt like I was letting my organization down. I felt like I was letting my mentors down. I definitely went through that grief wheel that we talk about. And one of the biggest revelations is I tend to be extremely optimistic and extremely tenacious and extremely goal-driven. And so I thought, yeah, I'll lick this sucker. And no, I didn't. I went through every phase of that grief wheel that there was, because truth is, it was loss. It was a closure that I needed to honor. So I did go through, I'm hesitant to call it regret, because I do believe that we are a sum total of everything that happens to us, and that we don't get here unless we've lived all of there. I believe that drives us to here. So I can't say I regretted any of it. I certainly did a fair bit of beating myself up, like, how did I not see the signs? Why didn't I do this before? I just finally had to make peace with that. I do firmly believe that everything contributes to where we are in every second of every day. So I finally put it behind me and carried along with me instead of letting it consume me. The one biggest thing I did, when I say I took inventory, part of that, a huge part of that, was a gratitude journal. I started a gratitude journal for all that I was grateful because of that former career. And I think that gave me peace. Not I think, it gave me peace. I think it gave me insight into the transferableness, if that's a word, of the skills that I had in that career and where and how I could use them in this career. So I started taking inventory in that way as well.
Okay, so you actually answered my second question too, not just the failure, but in terms of the grief and that the processes for dealing with that. That's so once you had that and that openness, I mean, there's a, I know what you mean about I'm open to whatever, and that there's a incredible vulnerability to that, which is also a strength, but it's we're not familiar with it, but it's there's a mindset in society that we have to be in control of everything, and there is a trusting the universe in that, in surrendering to say I'm open. What enabled you to open to that, to really truly be able to open as opposed to it being lip service?
Wow. Good question, because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 20. You've been an entrepreneur most of your career. We're used to controlling things. And I was used to having a plan, knowing the plan. In fact, I knew that 5-year plan, what it meant in an increment of a morning in terms of activity. I had no clue going into this. And surrender is my word. I don't do it easily. What fueled it? Wow, Rav, good question.
Because it's a huge step to truly say.
Okay, so I do have an answer, because I realize I attacked it like maybe differently than a lot of people do. I attacked it as a game. My core motive is fun. So fun drives everything I do, professionally, personally. And I can usually only get through tough times. So when we talk grief, I get through it with humor. To those looking around, that might look a little twisted, but it's got to have an element of fun for me to jump in. And I think that's probably, thinking back now about surrendering, I did it with a sense of adventure. I think because I closed up shop in a very strategic way, in a very incremental way, it gave me the benefit of being able to dabble for a bit, being able to play. And in all transparency, I have a steady, it helped a little bit. Had I not had some, and some residual income in my own. So had I not had that little bit of financial security, that might have changed things. So one piece of advice I give to people is have a nest egg. It's the best thing you can do for yourself because it takes all the stress away. And so I jumped in like a new adventure. Adventures excite me. I love new projects. I love new initiatives. I love creating fun ideas. And so I treated this the same way.
So.
And I cried. In full transparency, because you do know me, I do cry. So yes, every now and again I had a good cry and I went, okay, so put on your big girl pantyhose and get out there. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. The interesting thing, because there is a paradox there between the controlling
and the surrendering.
And the key, though, I think, is you have to get to a point of trusting that the universe is a supportive universe, not out to get you. And I don't know that most people can really get to that point easily, because that's not their experience. Would you agree?
I would say that's true. I would also say that while some people say burn all your bridges, I think that's one model to follow. That's not one for me. I believe that there's a time and place for that, and I have used that modality, if you will. In this case, I think my control came from the fact that I chose to surrender. Maybe that's a twisted control freak's way of surrendering. But I had the choice to surrender, and I could stop that choice at any time. And so that made it a little bit easier. Does that make sense? I made it part of my strategy that I was surrendering to whatever came up, but I didn't have to choose what came up.
Well, underlying that, I think is something, that I've gained a deeper insight recently, is that, we all have our stories, we all have our histories and the baggage that comes with it. And there's a lot of rationalization of why we need to be there. But some work I've been doing recently has helped me come back to the realization is that's not relevant. Our stories, our history is not relevant, because we choose in every minute what we're doing. Those are things that happened in the past, but most people are not actively choosing right now, do I choose to respond? They're going.
Oh, and truth is, when something comes to us, we put it into the exact same groove or rut that we are used to putting things in, right? We tend to say, okay, I'm open as long as it fits what I think the universe is going to send me. And you're right, it's not relevant at all, because often what the universe sends us is something totally different. Well, if you keep doing what you did, you'll keep getting what you got. So how's that working for you, right? It takes surrendering and being open and vulnerable.
Yeah, and that, and like I say, to me, what's implicit in that is trusting that the universe is there in a supportive way, which can be tough to get to, because we've all got challenging stories where it seems like things are against us. And yet, for most of us, we would not discover the strength we had if we hadn't come through those points.
Absolutely. We are a sum total of everything that happens to us. I remember my son Scott was playing a video game at one time. I think it was Pirate Island, something like that. And on the third level, you got the chance to buy bananas. And being a frugal kind of guy at that time, he decided he didn't want bananas. Well, when you get to the 10th level, you realize that you couldn't cross the bridge to gold without bananas to feed the monkeys. And I thought, what a cool metaphor for life, right? If we went through all of life, or at least this particular period of transition, that pivotal piece, by saying, okay, anything that comes my way right now, this might be part of something I'm supposed to. It's so much fun to live in that space. It's so exciting in a scary time. It's so playful in a pretty scary time. So it's a wonderful way to look at it. Like, what's the universe going to send me? Okay, this is a red herring. I wasn't expecting this. What am I supposed to do with it? Right? It's cool.
And that's, to me, it's about, makes life a discovery.
It is. And it was so different than how I had certainly been living the last few years before that transition. I was on autopilot. And I think a lot of us are, right?
Yeah.
We keep doing what we were doing, and then we're surprised when we keep getting what we kept getting.
Well, that's because we're not choosing in every moment. What is it that who do we want to be? What do I want to do? We're just going on default. Okay, we're coming close to time. One thing I want to get to with you before we finish is you and I, all of our work is very similar in that we come from purpose. Our focus is on purpose, whether it's individual purpose or shared purpose with an organization. That's where it's, to me, and I believe for you, it's got to start. Talk about, does it juice? Tell me about what your perception of purpose is and why it's so critical.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll work backwards. Why it's so critical is because it's a joy to work in that space. Purpose, to me, in my in the system that I walk people through is a combination of core motive, it's core values, it's what juices you, what do you wake up wanting to do in life, all of those pieces. And I feel that it's important to align whether you are within a corporation, an association, a calling, a whatever the case may be. It's the driver that drives us. And we all do what we do easily when life is easy. It's when life gets challenging for whatever reason that we need tools like you and I hopefully arm people with. It's during those difficult times that if you're not juiced, then discipline kicks in. If you are juiced, if you do have purpose, joy kicks in. And that's the difference. Is it discipline or joy that you want to fuel your dreams?
Yeah. So for you, what did it take for you to discover that joy in that journey? What were the key things that you had to, not necessarily the experiences you had, what did you have to do to open? Because I believe that it's all inside us. It's not something we found outside. We have to connect with it inside. So what enabled you to open to discover that?
So do you mean the pivotal moment? What did I have to let go of, or what did I do to feel it?
Yes.
Okay. I would say I had to do kind of like a body scan, only it was a life scan. I had to do a checkup from the neck up. I had to look at everything around and say, how was I physically? How was I spiritually? How was I mentally? What was my energy like? What was the fruit of all my labor around me? Where was I at? Just to see if this gut was real. And when I realized, yeah, I could probably do some work and maybe experiment with alternatives in life, then the biggest value I got was taking inventory. So I did a lot of work on me. I did a lot of journaling about what gave me joy. When did I feel joy most? Anytime in my life. And then I tried to look for the through line. I have to say that right alongside with that was my gratitude piece. I sat down and wrote everything down I was grateful for and realized that the list was really long. And if you don't know what to write, put your hand on your heart. Is it beating? There's something to be grateful for. Take a breath in. Can you feel it? That's something to be grateful for. Some days that's as difficult as it was for me, was it felt like I didn't know what to put on the list. So I started there. And what I realized was some things I was more grateful for than others. And that was the aha to think, I need to put all those together. And so taking inventory of who I was today. What juices me today? What gives me joy today? And then what can I do today? I love the affirmation you gave me last week. In fact, it's on my desktop. What do I have to do? No. Help me out.
Oh, good Lord, yes. What do I need to perceive, know, be, and receive that would allow me
Absolutely, in order to get what I want. And so I think that was probably, had I known that affirmation 7 or 8 years ago, I would have started there. What do I have to know? What do I have to perceive? What do I have to, all of those things, what do I have to be aware of? And then to just listen. The answers come.
And the key there, we're running out of time, but the key there is it's not an answer, it's a question. It's to sit in the question. We think we need to know the answers. No, you need to sit in the question and allow, and once you get an answer, stay in the question because more comes. Don't assume that is it.
Yeah.
Right? It's to sit in that question, and people don't know how to do that. They need to know. That's that need to.
They just need to sit and start. Get comfy with it. Don't burn all your bridges and be grateful.
Well, thank you so much, Glynis. This is amazing. I mean, the simple pieces like the gratitude journal sound simple, but it's huge.
It is huge.
Inventorying yourself. And that's a process I use when I'm helping people connect with purpose too. It's about looking at those successes, those peak experiences. And like I said, what's the through line? What's the common thread? Those are powerful tools that giving yourself the time to grieve, giving yourself being gentle enough with yourself to let yourself go through that journey. It's critical.
Yeah,
So,
beating yourself doesn't get you anywhere.
yeah. But don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up.
Nope.
Yeah. So once again, this is I'm Ravi Tangri. This is the From meh2YEAH profile. Every Monday we have this show, and midweek we're going to do a nugget show, 5-minute show with a really powerful tool for you to move your life to more yeah. We have some interesting changes coming in the profile show in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. And we will be changing up a little bit the format so that it's going to be a little more interesting as we move forward. If you want to get all of these, you can get them on a podcast. Simply go to ravitangri.com, RAVITANGRI.com, and you can subscribe. You'll get the podcast by blog. You can get them through iTunes, through Google Play and Stitcher, so you can access them as you like at your leisure. So we will see you in a couple of days with a really powerful nugget to help you let go of a little bit of meh and bring a lot more yeah into your life.